Hi, everyone, and welcome to another session of Techtivities. My name's Kaylee Lehrer, and I'm a curriculum specialist here at Tech. So, today we're going to jump right in, and we have a really great activity for you, and that is Social Emotional Learning Board Game. So, let's take a look at that. So, just taking a quick look at our agenda for today, our goal is first to go over student objectives and standards. Then we'll move into our activity procedure. Moving along, we'll discuss teacher technology skills needed, then materials needed to make this activity happen, and then a really great extension activity for your students. So first up, taking a look at our objectives. Students will be able to explore their social emotional well-being through interactive games and activities. Students will also explore how to create, share, and play a board game to promote their own social emotional learning. Students will be able to use Google Drawings and Google Docs to create and share their board games with their teachers and their peers and even their families. Students will be able to reflect on their emotions based on discussions that took place during the board game activity. So it's a pretty simple activity, but fosters a lot of really amazing skills. Moving along, just a quick look at our standards. So engaging in that collaboration, reporting on a topic, and of course, adding in that multimedia. Now, taking a look at our activity procedure, which I'm going to show you a little bit more in depth shortly. Students will learn about the basics of social emotional learning and emotion management. So this can be done however you like, maybe in the form of a class discussion, review sheet, Google Slides lesson, Google Meet, whatever works for you in your classroom and how you want to teach that to your students. Students will then learn about board game creation. They can explore popular board games as well as options for creating digital board games, which is what I'm going to show you how to do. Next, students will be introduced to game creation using Google Drawings and Google Docs. Google Drawings will be used to create the actual board game, and Google Docs can be used for directions, cards, whatever it may be. There's a lot of room for creativity. And finally, once students create their games, they will share it out with their teachers and classmates for them to play. This can be done virtually via Google Meet, or it can even be printed out for students to play face-to-face. Taking a look at teacher technology skills needed, all you really need is just some knowledge of using Google Docs and Google Drawings. So that's going to be creating content, sharing content with your students, and collaborating in real time. In addition, knowledge of how to share resources with students. So however you're pushing it out to them, if that's Google Classroom, email, and knowledge of how to create a board game digitally, which I'm going to show you is pretty simple. So taking a look at other materials needed, we're of course going to need that Google Drawings and Google Docs, any internet connected device to make this happen, a video chat platform to interact and have your students collaborate, game playing pieces, so that of course could be a tangible item or it could be digital. And if you're going to print it out, paper or cardstock would be great. So before we take a look at our extension, I'm going to actually show you my example. So what I have here is my Google Docs, and this is my problem-solving board game directions and cards. So if we see here, I just have some quick directions. This is, of course, a great example to share with your students and something that you can push out to them and give them some inspiration for making their own. I have some teacher tips. So my teacher tip is going to be to print these out on different color cardstock. Of course, if you're doing it digitally, you can just change that font color. And scrolling down, I've printed out and typed out some scenarios. So I have school scenarios, home, friendship, and ask a question. So these are basically going to be our board game cards. Students will pick a card depending on the space that they land on, and then they will choose one of these to answer. So this was something that I was able to simply create and something that your students can also create and play as well. So that's the Google Docs portion. In terms of the Google Drawings portion, here's my example board game. Now, of course, I could take it a step further and create those game pieces, but for now, I have a basic board game setup that I made using my different shape tools and, of course, adding text features. Your students can get really creative here, which I'm going to show you back in that extension activity. So there we have our docs and our drawings. Heading back into our presentation, here's our extension. Once students have done all of those steps, task students with the challenge of adding different components to their games. So for example, students can add challenge questions. Maybe they want to add a skip a space, asking questions, some different movement activities. These are all options here for an extension. In addition, once students have created, shared, and played their games with their peers, challenge them to choose one of the topics from the game to respond to. So maybe if the emotion is mad, they can choose to respond to that with a prompt. They can write a response or even create a presentation in relation to that emotion discussed. So I wanted to thank everyone so much for joining us today for our Techtivities session. Be sure to check out our Otis courses as well as our other Techtivities. Again, this is Social Emotional Learning board game. My name is Kaylee Lehrer, and if you have any questions, be sure to hit that Ask Otis button, and we'll take care of that for you. Have a great rest of your day.